Priscilla here with another Transgirl C where we talk about comics, cartoons, and other awesome nerd shit. Well, Happy New Year! It's 2018 and that makes this the first video of 2018, so let's start things off right by talking about an amazing comic book that I think you should be reading right now if you're not already reading. I'm sure many of you are. Now, does this mean we have a topic? Yes! Even though I wasn't sure what we would talk about in the midweek video, I am sure right now what our topic's going to be. But before we get into this amazing story, this comic that many of you are probably already reading, before we get into it, let's take a look now at things you might have missed. These are, of course, cartoons or anime or comics or just something that I think is particularly cool that maybe you had missed out on. It's a possibility. Now, this one's kind of a blast from the past, but it has many graphic novels, It has many graphic novels, so you can still pick up the whole story and read it in its entirety. I'm talking about Michael Turner's Soulfire. Now, just the first volume is actually written by Michael Turner. Of course, as many of you maybe know or don't know, Michael Turner was a great comic book writer, artist. Back in the mid-2000s, he was real big. And then he died of cancer, which is really sad. I remember a lot of the work he did for Supergirl, and so for me, it's super personal because I just really appreciate and admired him. But before he left us, he did leave us an amazing world called Soulfire. Now, this is a comic that is all about magic and dragons and the rebirth of magic in the world and science, and it's amazing. You follow a group of people as they try to coach a young man into being what he's supposed to be, the returner of magic, the bringer of light. And it's a really difficult journey because there's a guy who was around the world with when magic was still around and abundant, and he's trying to stop him because magic causes, in his mind, nothing but trouble, and he wants to rule the world, and he can't do that if there's a bunch of magic around. I'm not sure why, but that's his story, and he's sticking to it. Now, as far as I know, there are 4 volumes. This is volume number 4, so can't read this. Gotta start at the beginning. But it's really good. The characters are interesting and mostly likable. There are a few that don't really rub me the right way, but they're not meant to, and that's the point. So, give it a read. It's Michael Turner's Soulfire. It's by Aspen Comics. Now, as mentioned, only really the first volume is written by Michael Turner, but the people who carried on his legacy do a really great job with the characters, and I really do think you will appreciate and enjoy the work that they do. Sorry, let me get a drink. We got a lot of talking to do. And as classical, the train's coming through. But that's alright. It's not a big deal. Now, you must be wondering, I was super excited when this video started. I'm still excited. You must be wondering what we're going to be talking about this week. Well, I'm here to tell you that we're talking about Saga from Image Comics. Yes, I'm finally doing a video on Saga. Either you are reading this or you're not reading this. That's really the only 2 options. Maybe you're waiting to start it. Maybe you're waiting to hear a really good word about it. And here I am to tell you, boom, great word. This is easily one of my top 5 sci-fi stories. It's great. The characters are great. The art is great. The dialogue is dumb and amazing. It's so good. The whole thing is great. So let's just get started talking about this book. This is the hardback. There are 2 hardback editions because there are currently 48 issues, and they're pretty thick. Issue 50 comes out in March. They did have a brief hiatus for a while, so if you're just jumping on, you have plenty to read and catch up with, and I'm telling you, you're going to appreciate it. You're going to like it. So let's get started. Saga is the story of Marco and Alana as they're trying to start their family and this adventure in space. And really, the backdrop for this is a war between their people. I know, very Romeo and Juliet-esque, right? Because Of course, why not? It's like love stories are meant to have a familiar backdrop, and so that's the one that these particular artists and writers have picked as sort of that two star-crossed lovers trying to come together to make something better in the world. So, Romeo and Juliet was a total tragedy. But, so maybe not the best background for a love story? Yes. At its heart, Saga is a love story, but it's more than that. So it's about Marco and Lana, just like I said. And so they're two different alien species. Marco comes from Reef, which is a small moon, which actually rotates the planet that Alana's from, called Landfall. Now, their people are lovingly referred to as Moonies and Wings because of the character traits that come from those two species. Marco's people are like horned. They have horns, and Alana's people have wings. And basically, for as long as anybody can remember, for whatever reason, these two people have fought. It's kind of dumb to have a war with your own moon, or with the planet that your moon revolves around, and they kind of figure that out, and they spread the war basically across this galaxy, and that's the backdrop setting. So, Alana reads a book. Now, you don't find all this out at the very beginning, so, you know, I'm kind of skipping ahead for some of you, for a lot of you I am, but that's okay, because I need to give you, like, a good picture. So, Alana reads a book. She reads a book by a D. Oswald Heist, and she thinks it's the most amazing and best book that she's ever read in her life, and she wants to just share it with someone really bad. And none of the people at the detention center where she's been stationed, because she's a soldier and Marco's a soldier, so I should mention this, but Marco's being detained at the detention center, so Alana's trying to share this book with people, and they don't want to read it. And through weird circumstances, she actually makes Marco read it. And she reads it to him, I should say. And he loves it. Like, he understands the message that the author is trying to convey. The same message that Alana understands is that the entire war, the war that nobody can remember why anybody's fighting for, is dumb. It's stupid. And that there needs to be something better. And through the process of sharing the book, the two fall in love. Like I said, the core of the story is a love story, but it's such a messy, clumsy love story. It's amazing. And like I said, the dialogue's fucking great. Like, there's a great line where they're having sex. There's a lot of nudity in this. I should possibly mention that this is not really for children. So, you know, 16 and above, I guess, is where I would put this for reading ages, because while there's a lot of nudity, I wouldn't even say it's tasteful. It's just kind of there, and it's in the background, and you sort of just get used to it, which I guess is really the point, but not important. There's a great scene where the two of them are having sex, and it's at the end, and Alana freaks out because she's like, "Did you just come inside me?" He's like, "You told me to." And she's like, "Yes, that was sexed up crazy Alana. You can't trust her. She says all sorts of horrible things and uses the word dick unironically." And it's just like, that's the tone of the book. That's kind of the whole dialogue. It's messy and it's clumsy, and that's the story too. It's messy and clumsy. So the way the book opens is over a narrator talking about, you know, the beginning of life and how you don't know how you're going to come into this world, and generally a lot of people who come kicking and screaming out of the Aether don't stay around very long unless they build something with somebody else, and that sort of sets more of the tone of that love story I'm talking about. And that narrator is Hazel. Hazel is Marco and Alana's child. Yes, that's the other part of the story, is they actually managed to be able to copulate, which nobody thought was possible between their races because they're so vastly different, but they manage it. And, well, there are stories that there are camps where women are forced to do it with the enemy combatants, and they make half-breeds that only last a couple of weeks, but that could all be lies. Who knows? No one knows. So, The story becomes Marco and Alana trying to just survive and get their child off a shitty planet called Cleve. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, spaced there for a second. So they're trying to get off a shitty planet called Cleve, and along the way, they meet Isabel, who's a ghost. She is part of a race that was on Cleve that got wiped out by the war, and apparently the evolution of that people is that when you die on Wreath, you stay on Cleve, you stay there to protect it as a spirit. And she wants off the planet just as bad as anybody. And she's willing to help them, but she needs a way off the planet, and the only way to do that is if she bonds to something from the planet that's leaving the planet. Hence, Hazel. Hazel was born on Cleve. Was born on Cleve, and that's the person that Isabel wants to get to ride with. And she's a great character, too. Now, of course, Alana is absolutely, totally against it at first, but it's really a nail-biting situation, and she's sort of forced to do it. And turns out that Hazel makes a great babysitter. Along the way, they meet all kinds of people, but the main point is that they're being hunted by not only a blue blood named Robot Prince 4, but by mercenaries, both of them having been hired by the opposite side of the conflict. The Robot Prince working with the people of Landfall, and the mercenaries working for the people of Wreath. And the ideal is to kill Marco and Lana. Now, the people of Landfall want Hazel killed as well, but Wreath wants the child alive. For whatever reason, nobody is really being particular about it, so who knows? I don't know. You know, it's politics. Everybody has their reasons. Now, Landfall wants the kid dead because, you know, there are elections to think about, and the president's like, well, if there's a half-breed kid running around, that doesn't look very good for me in our wartime efforts, and I'll probably not be president anymore. It's stupid, it's sleazy. But nobody knows why Wreath wants to keep Hazel alive. There's just no honest word about that. That is what that is. Now, there's a lot of other minor interesting stories made by side characters in the book, but everything just kind of continuously ties together into the main story, into Marco and Alana's story as they make this grand trip across the galaxy, just trying to survive with their family. And there's a big plot and like government conspiracy that underlines the entire war between the two warring sides, and it's really interesting. But what really brings the story home is the characters. Like I said, they have great dialogue, and it's just all kind of, the art's really spectacular and great and sharp, but the characters themselves, like their personalities, are all kind of messy and, well, human, I suppose. There's not a perfect cast member among them. Not even, no, there's not a perfect cast member among them. They all have their own stains and such. Like, for the longest time, it's just Marco, Alana, and then Marco's mother, Clara. Clara and her husband, Bar, arrive on their rocket ship, which is made out of a tree, which is the greatest thing ever. It's a living rocket ship. They think they're saving Marco, and things happen. It ends up that the mother goes along with them on their trip to meet the author of this book that they think is so amazing and incredible. And that's really all I'm going to tell you, because I don't want to give too much of the story away. We're also running out of time because my phone's weird. But yeah, you should pick this up because I think it's one of the greatest comic book stories out currently, especially in the terms of sci-fi, because it's a little different than what you're used to, and I think you would really like it. Once again, that's Saga. You can get it from Image in hardback, or they do have, softbacks, but this hardback just feels so good in the hand. Like, I don't mean to, shield for anybody, but I totally suggest that. Or you can just read it online. All this is good, but you should read it. Anyway, join us again later in the week when we talk about something else. Once again, not sure. I'm never quite sure about those midweek videos. But until next time, enjoy comics, enjoy cartoons, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!